Welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast with your host, award-winning author Paul C. Thornton, a weekly conversation with the amazing cruisers featured in the Joy of Cruising trilogy, comprised of The Joy of Cruising, Cruising Interrupted, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again. Each book is a compilation of features about cruisers and cruise and travel personalities from around the world. It's the next best thing to cruising, hearing about cruising from the unique and diverse perspectives of Paul's amazing guests.
Hello, passionate cruisers. This is Paul. And on the first of two episodes of the Joy of Cruising podcast, I am delighted to welcome David and Stephanie, a married couple that performs as an intimate musical duo. David plays the guitar and sings, and Stephanie sings. In October of 2022, David and Stephanie attained their longtime goal of their first contract as cruise ship performers. They were assigned to Carnival Elation. David is one of the hardest working independent artists in the business. Hailed as a truly gifted entertainer, the Chicago rock singer delivers a seamless blend of pop and rock with a 90s twist. He was a finalist on VH1's Make a Band Famous. He has appeared on national TV and has toured the United States from LA to New York, headlining venues like House of Blues in Chicago, the Mint in LA, and Bowery Electric in New York. He performs with his original band, the David Paige Band, a group called the Student Body, which is a party rock cover band, and David and Stephanie. Stephanie is a classically trained vocalist with an impressive career, beginning with her first paid gigs at the age of 8. She eventually followed that passion out to New York to study musical theater at AMDA and worked as an actor and singer, with credits including an off-Broadway musical, Mademoiselle Modiste. After college in Miami, Stephanie moved to Chicago, where she has been performing consistently. She sings in a No Doubt tribute band called Don't Speak, and she sings and plays keyboards in the Student Body, the David Paige Band, and of course sings in David and Stephanie. Carnival Elation is the oldest, smallest ship in the Carnival fleet. Don't take that as a slight, however. Near the end of their contract, Carnival Elation's hotel manager informed the crew the Carnival Elation was selected as number one in guest satisfaction across the entire Carnival fleet. David and Stephanie loved that contract on Carnival Elation. But in the follow-up episode, oh my goodness, wait until you hear where their next contract took them. David and Stephanie, welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
How you both doing?
Pretty good.
Doing pretty good. How are you?
Doing well. I just got off a long cruise, a bucket list cruise. So I just recorded a kind of a reflections podcast about that cruise. It was 16 days from Hawaii to Alaska.
That's a bucket list for us.
Absolutely.
That Trans-Pacific, right?
Yeah, two bucket list locations in one. So I thought it was worthy enough to do just a short, reflections. And then also I had some performers like you who were on there. They were jugglers and acrobats. I mean, it was unbelievable. And so I have them appearing on a bonus episode a week after the Reflections podcast. So
very cool.
So I've been real busy, but fun busy. So before we discuss your dream contract, tell our listeners about yourselves. Where you're from, where do you live, when and how did you meet? Anything you're willing to share.
So we live in Chicago together. We are a married couple. I was not born and raised in Chicago, but I've been here since I finished college down in Miami. So it's been home for, I think, more years than I'd like to admit.
I've lived here in Chicago my entire life. Actually, the longest I've ever been away from Chicago was during the time that we were actually on our last contract. So other than that, I've just been here.
Okay. Talk about the origins of this goal, this dream even, to work as performers on cruise ships.
Oh man. It's a big question. And because like Stephanie and I didn't meet until 2018. And so we actually had this goal separately before we had ever met, which was pretty cool.
Wow.
For me, I had been a guest on some cruise ships in the past. And when I was on there, I saw that there were musicians there. I've been a musician. I've been playing guitar since I was 13 years old. And that's always been something that I've loved. And my goal was always to travel and perform, singing and playing guitar and touring with my own original project. And when I saw that there were musicians on cruise ships, I thought that was an even more glamorous and amazing way to see the world and perform. And so I've wanted to do that forever. It was actually one point, probably, I don't know, 2011, 2012, something like that. I had an opportunity that was offered to me. I had a contract offered to me, and through a whole host of things going on in my personal life, I was not able to accept that contract, and I had to kind of just accept that was something that was going to slip away from me, and I would never get to really fulfill that dream. And luckily, that wasn't the case. We were able to kind of bring that back full circle.
Yeah, I marched into a rehearsal room, and that's how I met David at a band rehearsal. And a few years later, we made that a reality. But yeah, for me, it was a dream for a really long time. I was a performer in New York and a performer in Miami, and was able to go audition for the production shows. And you can't tell by hearing me, but I'm not a very tall person. And a lot of dancers, at least in 2004, 5, and 6, needed to be kind of like Rockette height. And for anyone who doesn't know, I think they lowered the Rockette height requirement to 5'7", and I'm only 5'2" still. But I always got typed out of the auditions. I auditioned 9 times for open call cruise, from all the different cruise lines and different agents back then, and never even really got a chance. I got typed out right away. So being able to do this with David was more than a dream come true.
And like, for those of you who don't know what typing out means, she would walk into this room with a whole host of other singer dancers, and they would have their headshots in front of them, and they would just call numbers, and those 3 numbers would get to sing and perform, and everybody else never even had the chance to open their mouths or move their feet in any kind of way.
Yeah, it was like everybody else, thank you very much. And the casting directors were always eating sandwiches. Here we are, hungry. But
so how did the dream become a reality?
Oh, so I've gotten into video production over the past several years. It's been kind of a passion project of mine, and I made a video for us to book, and we just turned a part of our living room into a little set, put up, some lights, and shot a video and recorded us performing like 16, 17 of our favorite songs. And we put that up online and put it on YouTube, and we're kind of looking to use that to book more land gigs and maybe get some residencies. We actually had a really successful residency that ran for like 2 years.
We were really lucky to have a residency here in Chicago that was weekly, that allowed us to build up our repertoire and cover music from many different genres, all the decades and stuff. So we had the confidence going into making this video because we had tested many, many, many songs through that residency that we're really grateful to have had.
Just for clarification, a residency is sort of like a semi-permanent spot at a certain venue, right?
Yeah. So the spot we had is a bar called Houndstooth, which, rest in peace, just closed its doors.
Just closed. It's another casualty of all the things during and post pandemic.
Right.
Yeah. We actually our marriage license states the Houndstooth venue as the address where we got married.
Wow.
That's how much that place was family to us. We played at that venue every Thursday night for 2 years.
Yeah.
And anytime we couldn't make it on Thursday because of some other conflict or something, we would book it for Saturday or Sunday or some other day that week. And they were amazing to us and helped keep us afloat.
Yeah.
But yeah, that helped build our confidence. That helped build our repertoire. And we put this video out, and a friend of mine who has worked on cruise ships before was like, hey, man, you should send this over to my buddy. And we sent it to him, and we sent it to a couple of other people. And overnight, we had multiple offers to look at. It was amazing how fast that happened.
It happened very fast.
I think the beautiful thing about us, because I lean more towards like rock music and like 90s boy band type of music, where Stephanie leans a little bit more towards like certain pop music, and she also has this background in jazz and musical theater. And so we have, between the two of us, our voice styles are very different, but we also blend really well together. So we can play everywhere. We have rock sets, we have pop sets, we have oldies sets.
We do have a sweet spot though. And it is that like 90s, like Sheryl Crow, Matchbox 20, like the 90s nostalgia stuff that was played on like the variety radio stations in 1998. I think that's our sweet spot. And then also like a sweet spot for Fleetwood Mac. I think our voices, like Stevie's and Lindsey Buckingham's, we can harmonize higher or lower than one another. And sometimes people don't know who's singing what part, and that's really fun for us.
Do you ever get called on Elation, or did you ever get called on Elation to play in other people's bands, and their music might be slightly different, or you just solely did your thing?
We just did our thing. Mm-hmm. All of the, so there were 3 soloists. There was a piano bar entertainer, guitar soloist, and a Caribbean soloist. He did like the steel drums. Then there was us, a string duo, and a 4-piece quartet rock band.
Yeah, like party band.
So that was and our DJ. And then there was the playlist cast, which was separate. They were the ones performing like the bigger shows in the theater. But for the musicians, we each had a schedule that was separate. If we ever wanted to like collaborate with each other, that was on the table for sure. Okay. Mm-hmm. We would from time to time go hang out in the piano bar, and every once in a while he'd call us up to sing with him, which was fun.
There was an epic moment where it was when Donald was still on his contract. We walked in there with a few members of the playlist cast, and he looked up and he was like, all right, you all come up here and sing Bohemian Rhapsody. And so we have a sweet video of it too, all the harmonies and just the guests that night. It was really like it was a closeout to a cruise too, I believe. And it was just a really sweet moment where the guests got to see how you become like a family as crew, and how you get to kind of extend that to them throughout their vacation. And it was definitely one of the highlights for me, was singing in the piano bar with everybody.
Since we're talking about cruising, had you cruised casually? Well, I heard David say earlier he had. How about you, Stephanie? Had you cruised casually before you got the job?
I had never been on a cruise ship. I've been on like a Manhattan dinner cruise that my school put us on, those little like yacht type things. And I had been on a snorkeling catamaran and I'd been on a dive boat, but I'd never been on a cruise ship. The stubborn part of me knew that one day I would get paid to be there. So I always told myself I would never buy a cruise ticket. So
leading up to that first cruise, were you anxious at all about seasickness or anything like that?
Yeah, I was. But it wasn't debilitating. I knew that whatever would happen, I would overcome it.
I was nervous about it too. I had been on cruises before, but maybe it's like the need for control in me. But if I'm not operating a vehicle, I tend to get motion sickness. Like I can't even ride passenger seat in a car.
Wow.
I need to be the one driving it. And that's the only way I don't get motion sickness in a car. And on the cruise ship, we just bring a bunch of Dramamine and, we had these little C-bands that we wore on our wrist that like put pressure on like your pressure point on your wrist. I don't know how the medical science of that works, but it was
It
great.
helped, and we got our sea legs eventually. Yeah. Oh man, I just get filled with goosebumps, and I'm like tearing up right now thinking about preparing for that, because it was just so exciting for us getting ready for this adventure. Even like all the little things, packing. I remember as soon as we got that contract offer, I went on eBay and I got like this rose gold suitcase I've always wanted.
Unfortunately, it was a casualty of the TSA agents.
The return
it
trip,
didn't live.
a wheel is not on that suitcase anymore. But anyway, we were so strategic in how we were packing, because not only did we bring our clothes and different shoes and stuff that we had for performances and stuff that we had to have for like daytime wear, we had to bring our gear as well. Like the mixer that we have for we use in-ear monitors, and that really helps us preserve our voices, because we would perform anywhere from 3 to 5 hours a day, and you have to be able to hear yourself to not over sing. So we had this mixer in a case that one thing was one suitcase just under the weight limit. So yeah. It was strategic in packing. And our neighbor, like we have our apartment here in Chicago, and our neighbor, we let her use the car while we were gone. So she was the one to drive us to the airport. And it was like 4 a.m. and she was like, "You guys, I get to be part of your story." It meant so much that the people around us could see that we were really changing our lives. I think more than we knew we were changing our lives at that time.
I think there was a part of us that going into that contract, we thought, we'll see how this goes. And if we like it, we can kind of continue to do it. But we didn't realize how much of even taking one contract, you have to uproot your entire life. We had to figure out what to do with our apartment. We have a dog. We had to get him kind of temporarily rehomed.
He has an other family now. He's very lucky. He has 2 families, and it was a kind of a best case scenario actually for him. He ended up with a great family and another fur brothers.
And then my son Stephanie's stepson Ben, like we had to figure out all of the agreements around that and figure out how to make sure that he was going to be with his mom, and then when he could come out with us, and how that was all going to get handled. There was a lot of logistical prep that went into it. And I think that we didn't necessarily realize how much of a significant life change becoming cruise ship musicians was going to be. And I didn't realize how much that meant that like you're either all in on it or you shouldn't be in it at all.
Now, how aware was Ben of what was going on with him? He knew what you were had an idea of what you were about to do?
Oh yeah, he was one of the first people that we told about it.
Yeah,
and he's super supportive. He loves getting to come on the ships,
and he's lucky too, and we're lucky that we performed so much, especially through the summer season in Chicago with our full band, that he's been at so many of our shows, and he knows that this is what we do for a job, and he knows that when it snows outside, we can't play at Chicago festivals. So it made sense. I think he was able to put the logic together that like, oh, well, for Daddy and Stephanie to keep working, they get to go on a cruise ship when it gets cold here. So we were really lucky that he's had that exposure to our life as gigging musicians prior to this job.
He seems really supportive of what you do. I love watching him play air guitar. I mean, he has performer written all over him.
Oh yeah. We actually, when we got back, we were still on the ship throughout Christmas, and then Ben and I share a birthday, and we were still on the ship throughout that and came back later in January. And when we got back, we got him this little left-handed 3/4 size guitar that's perfect for him. And we've got him guitar lessons through the School of Rock. And so he's
Yeah.
He's on his way.
He's on his way.
Yeah. I saw that on YouTube, and I urge my listeners to check you out. But we'll get to how they can follow you on YouTube and the internet. So talk about your first few days. How many days were you on the cruise before you had to perform?
1 day.
Oh, okay.
And that was actually unusual. A lot of people get onto the cruise ship, sign their sign-on paperwork, get their medical stuff approved and pushed through, get shown where their cabin is, and then maybe have time to shower and get dressed and go perform.
Mm-hmm.
We were lucky that we signed on the traditional duo off day. So we actually got a whole day to familiarize ourselves and tour the ship. Our manager took us around on a tour, and I couldn't stop smiling. I was just like, this is that. Oh, that's an atrium. Oh, look at the theater. And like, hello. I was like waving with two hands at all the crew members. Hi. And they were like, we know you're new.
So what's it like being a performer on the ship?
Being a performer on the ship is incredible. We perform on land all the time. I mean, we, especially, in the summertime, last summer before getting on the ship, we had a schedule of just about 5 shows a week.
Sometimes more. Yeah.
The challenge with it on land is we have to drive to the place we're performing. Sometimes that's close. Sometimes it's 2 hours away. Sometimes it's even further. And then when we get there, we have to set up the full PA system, all the sound equipment, and then we perform. And then it's late at night and we tear everything down and drive that same distance back home. Performing on a cruise ship, I throw my guitar on my back and a little backpack guitar case, and I have my pedal board in like a little suitcase thing. And we walk 1.5 minutes to the venue from our cabin door. And the changeover between musician time slots, there's 15 minutes between the time the last group ends and we start. And so that changeover is instant. It's so fast.
Yeah. It became pretty seamless.
We were already really fast at it because we're used to having to do so much more setup that, like, when we just did just the duo setup, it's incredibly fast for us.
It felt like a luxury. We were so lucky to just like plug and play, and that we played in 2 venues on the Carnival Elation, and the levels were already set. We had our sound check when we first got there. Levels are set and saved in the digital mixer, and it was just like plug in and play. It was great.
So other than those logistical differences, what other distinctions are there between performing on land and performing on a cruise? Is it pretty much the same?
I would say no.
Right. I would say yes and no. Yes to if you're the type of performer that you just go on autopilot and you do your show no matter what's going to happen. And then the no, how it's different from land gigs is that you're looking at an audience full of people who came from all walks of life that maybe like saved up for months or years for this vacation, and you need to make sure that they're having the vacation that they wanted. And it made every single set like so special for me and for us.
The other thing that I found to be really different about performing on a cruise ship as opposed to performing on land is when we perform, other than with our residency at Houndstooth, we didn't have any consistency to the locations that we were performing in or the audience necessarily. People would come to see our band, but for the most part, we're playing to this town's park district or this town's park district. The entire audience is a changeover. They saw us perform. They liked it. They didn't, maybe, whatever. And we almost, we rarely see them again. Where when we perform on the ship, those people are seeing us perform for 5 nights straight, 6 nights straight, 7 nights straight, whatever it'll be. And we started getting recognized not only around the ship, but also when we'd go out into port and people would recognize us. And it felt like celebrity status for us, going from, we could walk into a venue carrying a guitar and someone's not even going to like move out of the way so that I can get by, to people recognizing us and telling us how much they love our music in Nassau, Bahamas.
Yeah, even we would try to go like incognito to the beach, and you're like, "Oh, I know you're incognito right now, but we love you." And I was like,
singers.
"Yeah, you're the singers."
It sounds to me like for each of your sets, there's probably a percentage of the audience that's always the same. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I would say usually what would happen. So we would always start on the Elation. We would always start the first night. We would close down the atrium. We would be the last musician or bands. I can't speak. We would be the last ones to perform in the atrium before all the music was done for the night. And we would get a whole bunch of people that would see us performing, and they would either choose to come see us again or follow us around the ship. And then the next night we would perform up in the casino bar. And then as people are passing by, going to the comedians or in and out of the casino or over to the theater show, they would hear us and see us, and then they would start. So we would start accumulating people
like a little
that
crew.
would continue to follow us from venue to venue.
Yeah. So the percentage of people that stuck around was really nice to kind of get to know them too.
Yeah.
How did you spend your time on the ship when you were not performing?
At the gym.
Stephanie would wake up, get something to eat, get like ready to go to the gym, and then she would be there until it was time for her to come back
and
shower and get ready to perform.
Wow, that's great discipline. For our recent 16-day cruise, we packed all of these workout clothes. I don't want to say how many times we found it.
If you pack it, you have to use. That's why I always say, like, we were just on a trip for a friend's wedding a couple weeks ago, and I was like, my shoes and a workout outfit are there. I have to use it.
I was like, oh man, I forgot my workout shoes. And then for me, I was working most of the time during the day. On port days, I wouldn't go to the gym because I wanted to go out and see port. We would both go out and do that. We'd get to go explore or go on different excursions and stuff like that. But
Find good Wi-Fi.
That was really important because we wanted to make sure we were, FaceTiming with Ben and then trying to book gigs for when we were back on land. But then on days where we were at sea, I would go into the gym for a little bit. But then also I've been, working on this YouTube channel. So I would try to find time to vlog and edit and work on that channel.
And we would learn new music too.
Yeah, learned a lot of new music on that cruise.
Now, in the middle of that contract, David, you got a new job on the ship. Talk about Epic Rock.
I did get a new job on the ship. So when we first got on, we kind of got our bearings around the ship. And one of the things that we saw was that the playlist cast had a couple of different shows. One of them was Epic Rock. And at the very beginning of Epic Rock, there's like a 15-minute guitar intro to the show. And there's just a guitarist that's up there playing. And it was the solo guitarist on the ship. And he would do his thing, and it was really cool. It was really impressive. And I always liked catching that part. And in November, the later part of November, Mark said something about his contract was ending and he was excited to go home and go on vacation. And vacation, for people who work on cruise ships, when they call vacation, that's the time when they're not on the ship. It's the flip-flopped idea of a vacation. But yeah, he was excited to go home, and I was like, oh, cool. Who's taking your spot? And he goes, I don't know. And I was curious about that. So I actually asked the music manager and the playlist cast manager if nobody else wants that gig, I really want that gig. And everybody on the ship had seen me performing. I kind of had the flair for something like that. And Stephanie and I were referred to as the rock stars of the ship already, because we play a lot of rock music, and that's kind of uncommon for a duo. But like we would play the big rock songs like, Don't Stop Believin' and Living on a Prayer and stuff like that. And so everyone on the ship has seen me handle guitar work like that. And so they're like, we would love to have you. And so I immediately started putting together my idea of what that show could look like. And it was awesome. It felt so cool.
It was really cool to watch him learn theater terms and stuff that he hadn't been previously exposed to. Like, he's been on stage almost his whole life, but to get shown like what a mark is and what different marks are and stage blocking and stuff and how to follow that. It was really fun for me to watch him do something that I grew up doing. And it was also so fun to watch him be embraced as this lead guitar player, because here on land, with our full band, we have a lead guitar player, and then David handles the rhythm guitar. So to watch him get to really step into his own as an instrumentalist after all this time was inspiring, and it was again, like it just brings me to tears. It was such a great way to see him grow as a musician and as a person.
Now, if I may ask, is that a separate contract, or is just something you just decided to do?
So, unfortunately, there was no additional pay for something like that. I wish that there was. That would have been nice. But no, it was just something else that I took on.
Mm-hmm. And they worked that into our performance schedule. So on the nights that Epic Rock performed, which was traditionally the last night of a cruise, David would open the 2 performances of Epic Rock, and then we would do just 2 sets in the atrium to close down the cruise. And I don't know, every performer goes through an evaluation, and we know, like, how do you get the best evaluation possible to get the next contract and to look good and possibly even work your way up through the entertainment department on Carnival. So aside from just, wanting to be on that main stage theater, it also on paper looked really good that he took that responsibility on.
So I've been enjoying your YouTube chronicles about your life on cruise ship. You did a piece on some things that you didn't like about your contract. Take us through that.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly what I had said in that video, other than I know that there were a few things that really were difficult. One of them for me was port manning. And port manning is, it's a safety regulation, and it means that a certain number of crew members are legally bound to be on board while the ship is still in port. So just in the case that something happens, if there's, an electrical fire, or another ship runs into us, or something happens, you need to have at least a certain percentage of people to handle all of the different safety responsibilities. And so those people can't get off the ship when the ship's in port. I understand the purpose of it. I understand the need for it. But when it's your turn to not get off the ship, and all your friends are going off and they're going to go have a great time at the beach, or they're going to go on a snorkeling adventure, and you have to sit there and stay on the boat, wave goodbye to everybody.
From Wood Beach.
That was tough. I didn't enjoy that.
On that, are any performers exempt from that?
When you're new and you haven't been through enough training to be assigned a safety position or safety duties or a job within all of the safety protocols of the ship, you don't have port manning. So we actually think our whole first month, maybe a little bit longer than a month, did not have port manning duties.
Also, any guest performers, less like comedians, or we actually had a Broadway star, Chuck Wagner, come on, which we should come back to and talk about that later. But when those guest performers come on, they don't have safety responsibilities either.
Yeah, they didn't have to do drills.
They won't have to do that. If there's like a themed cruise, the bands that come on for that purpose, they wouldn't have safety responsibilities either.
Then you also talked about some things that others dislike, but you actually were okay with.
Yeah. So one of the places that actually Stephanie and I had a varying experience was around food. Stephanie is very health conscious. She like we already covered. She spent a lot of time in the gym when we were on the ship. She spends a lot of time in the gym on land too. But she's also a vegetarian, and the combination of finding foods that weren't excessively creamy or excessively bad for you in some way, while also not having any meat in it, was
a little
challenge.
Difficult at times. I really got tired of iceberg lettuce, cucumber, and tomato salads like that. I definitely had one day where I think I started crying. I was like, I just can't eat that salad anymore. And one day I refused to eat lunch. And I know, like, especially within the staff mess and the crew mess, like the dining rooms for crew, they do try to have a vegetarian dish of the day. But when that vegetarian dish of the day is creamed spinach topped with butter, it's like, thank you for trying, but this is my artery. I'm not in my 20s anymore, and my arteries, I'm blessed with the genetics of slow thyroid and stuff. So I was like, I refuse to eat lunch today. But it was really nice how David said in his video, didn't have to shop for groceries, didn't have to prep food, didn't have to cook food, didn't have to store food. And that was awesome.
And like, for me, I'm less picky about something being healthy, and I care more about whether or not it's tasty. And at a certain point, I'm going to have to shift my mindset on that. But as of right now, I was on that ship, and at any point that I was hungry, there was something for me to eat. If I wanted to go to the deli, there was really good sandwiches, or there was pizza available. In that weird mid-break during the day where lunch has closed but dinner hasn't opened in the crew mess, I could go get a burger from Guy's Burgers. I felt like my needs were more than taken care of. It was incredible for me. I didn't have any problems with food, other than when something is Stephanie's problem, it's also my problem. So
I did get good advice. There was a veteran musician on board, the Caribbean soloist, and he was like, I just try not to think about the food. I eat for sustenance, and it doesn't become something that is like a part of my day I'm looking forward to. It's like I eat and I'm living and I'm playing music. And it really just helped me find a new perspective.
Now, did you guys ever try the specialty restaurants? On
the Carnival Elation, there is one specialty. I have a hard time calling it a restaurant. There is a sushi stand.
Oh yeah. Sushi.
And that was the only specialty restaurant. But it's not a restaurant. You can't go in there and sit down. You can go up to the stand and you can order your food and pay extra for it.
It's a to-go box, yeah.
There was a Guy's Burger on board.
There's the main dining room. We had to get permission to go to that. And when we wanted to, it was granted. And
except for my birthday. My birthday cruise was sold out because my birthday is January 2nd. It's right next to the New Year cruise. It's part of the New Year's cruise. So the New Year's cruise was sold out. We were at capacity.
Was sold out, yeah.
So we couldn't go for my birthday. Couldn't go to the main dining room.
So Elation doesn't have like a steakhouse?
No.
No, they have steak upgrades available in the main dining room. So if you choose to order something like that, it would just then get charged to your Sail and Sign card.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we've had friends
Okay,
move on to different Carnival ships, and I've seen like that. Was it Capitano's, like the Italian place? I was like, what's that? Oh, I want to go to the Horizon and eat lunch with you.
Yeah. The reason I asked about the specialty restaurants, most ships have them, of course, and they usually have something really nice for vegetarians. So, Stephanie could be pleased with what she's offered, and David could pick out. I'm just kidding. So what did you love about your first contract?
For me, I think it was the work-life balance. Here on land, I spend so much of my day preparing for the gig later on, between unpacking and repacking gear, getting it into the car, making sure we have all the batteries charged, and then driving to and from these gigs. There's not much time for anything else.
But also you working another job.
Oh, yeah.
We both work other jobs on land in addition to music. So I think that being a musician on board, for the first time in both of our lives, aside from when David was a touring musician on land, for the first time for me, my only job was to perform. That literally a dream come true. Every day I was so grateful for that.
Especially because during the day when we weren't performing, we were hanging out on the beach in the Bahamas and then come back on land or come back on board, either head to the gym or get some video editing done and get showered and ready. And then we go perform. And then when we're on board, there are other shows that we could go to. We could go see the shows in the main theater. We could go catch the other musicians, watch the bands or the soloists or whatever. We
got a date night any night that we wanted it, doing things on land we would never be able to afford on a regular basis. Getting to go to a nice dinner, see a show, get a cocktail afterward, and socialize with friends. Like in Chicago, we would spend $300 or more on that night. So getting to do that at a very minute cost because of cocktails, which I don't know, which is a favorite thing to do of mine.
So, and then the cocktails, whether or not we chose to go to Crew Bar or to Alchemy Bar, would determine how much of a cost that really was.
Yeah.
I mentioned that I interviewed that longtime crew member, and I couldn't believe the prices at the Crew Bar.
Oh, they're fantastic.
Relative to the rest of the show. And going back to specialty restaurants, I won't clue the audience into what I'm talking about, but on your next contract, oh my goodness, you're going to have specialty restaurants to choose from that are unbelievable. But we'll save that.
We're very excited.
We're so excited. I feel like it's a first contract again, because our first contract was on the oldest ship on Carnival's fleet, which was still a beautiful ship full of people. I think I was going to go back to favorite thing about the contract. And I think it really was the people for me, because that was the variable that in our preparation, I didn't even take into account who I would meet and what I would learn about myself through the people that we met. And
we have lifelong friends that we met. There's a couple that was in the playlist cast, and after Ben and my mom came on board, a couple of days later, they came bursting into our cabin and were like, "We know you didn't ask. We know you weren't looking for auditions for this, but we want to let you know that we are now Ben's godparents."
Yeah.
And so the way that they've embraced us and our family was so far beyond what we could have expected.
Yeah. To be part of something and to be brought into a chosen family like that as people, for myself, I'm a transplant to Chicago. I've been all around in different cities throughout my life. And I've always just wanted to be a part of something, and from day one.
The first time that you found that was coming into the student body.
Yeah. yeah, our band here on land they're my brothers, but the crew and even some of the guests, I was just so moved by so many stories that I would get from people, and it really it changed me. I was not ready for that. I was not prepared for that. I didn't know how much I would cry during that contract and how much I still do just remembering people. And I felt like my purpose was finally realized.
Well, I was just about to ask you, give us a few highlights of that first contract, but you kind of previewed one already, and that was when, Ben and David's mom came on the ship. Talk about that.
Oh man, that was awesome. It was so, so cool to have them on board. It was like 3 weeks into our contract or 4 weeks into our contract.
Yeah, 4.
About a month into our 3-month contract. And so that was, up until that point, the longest I've ever been away from Ben. Mm-hmm. And since Ben was
barely three,
it's the longest Stephanie's been away from him too. Mm-hmm. So having them on board meant the world to us. And
the crew embraced them. They all called so David's mom Sue. And they took care of her when we were performing or when we were doing anything else. Like some of the crew members, like they made sure she always had her coffee the way she wanted it. And it was great.
It's amazing how many crew members are parents and have to leave their children behind while they work.
Wow.
And for a lot of countries, this is the best possible income stream for them. Mm-hmm. For instance, we were talking with some people down in Argentina who the standard regular, like average rate is about equivalent to about $325 a month is their income. And the lowest offer that we got as musicians to go perform on the ship, the lowest offer that we got, we didn't take this one, but the lowest one we got was $2,100 a month, which is so much more money. And so these people can afford to come onto a ship and be able to support their families. And so for them to be able to see this child on board and know that it's a crew member's child, the whole collective crew parent community was like, this is our child.
It was our crew baby.
It was really cool.
Yeah. Just as an aside, I think I've mentioned to you that I've written 3 books on cruising. Mm-hmm. The one book that I would really like to write, but it's one that, in order for it to not be superficial, I would have to get some publishing dollars behind me, is one from the crew's perspective, and I can certainly relate to what you just said. So did Ben watch all your performances?
As many as he could.
Ben's bedtime here on land is usually 8:30, 9 if we have like a particularly busy day. Mm-hmm. We wouldn't start performing those nights until 8:00, and that kid never wanted to miss a minute.
He didn't want to miss anything.
So there were a couple of nights where we had to, like, between our set break, we had 15 minutes and we would run him back to his cabin and get him put down for the night and read him a story and everything, and then run back to go play the next set. Mm-hmm. That happened a couple of times. He came to see, I took over on Epic Rock. They were on for back-to-back cruises. So I took over on Epic Rock for the second cruise, and he was at both of those shows.
Oh, he got to see that. Oh, that must have been great. Yeah. Daddy the rock star.
Yes. And he loved the playlist cast. He saw all those shows.
He would leave our sets to go watch the playlist cast.
Yeah, too. He made a best. So one of the cast members became his best friend, and he would sing that cast member's songs. And every so often, like we've FaceTimed with them. He's like, I get to talk to my best friend. And it was just the sweetest friendship that we got to watch kind of grow.
So before we wrap up, I know that during your honeymoon, a year before the contract, I understand you both got certified as scuba divers, right?
That's right. We got our open water certification. It was
Yes. I really want to give, if I can, a shout out to Underwater Vision in Utila, Honduras. That dive center and dive community, the instructors, the management is top notch. And if you want to go get scuba certified, go there.
Well, you just gave them a shout out for the world to hear. My daughter just came back from Honduras, so I'll have to ask her. I don't know any particulars. She was in Honduras at the same time we were on that cruise to Alaska, so I haven't gotten any details. But I'll ask her. What's the name of the city again?
Utila. It's actually one of the Bay Islands.
It's right next to Roatan, so it's a little ferry ride from Roatan, where a lot of cruise ships will dock in Roatan.
So anyway, so you got certified as scuba divers. So the culmination of this journey, the very last cruise at the end of your contract, you got the opportunity to scuba dive. And you had some guests, some surprise visitors. Let's talk about that.
We did. First off, I want to say I'm incredibly impressed with the amount of research that you've done. So thank you. These questions are awesome. We went scuba diving and we were in Grand Turk, Grand Turk is like a really awesome dive spot as it is, but it was particularly cool because our cruise contract on the Elation took us to the same 4 ports over and over again. So for 16 straight cruises, we saw the same 4 ports in the Bahamas. On this last cruise, we got 2 new ports. And so it felt like a nice Christmas surprise or birthday surprise all in one. It was amazing. So we go to Grand Turk and we got to go diving. And we were down there, we're checking out this beautiful reef shelf. And it goes down 7,000 feet.
Yeah, people travel from all over the world to scuba dive there to see that 7,000-foot shelf.
It just drops and it's just blue. Like you don't see a bottom, you don't see it get dark. It's just blue forever. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. And while we were down there, I looked down and I saw some sharks. There were 3 black tip reef sharks that were swimming below us. And it was so cool. We had turned down another opportunity to go scuba diving somewhere where we knew sharks would be.
Yeah, there's places in the Bahamas where they bait the water and they wait for the sharks to come and then they bring you down.
There's also like some cage diving experiences.
Cage diving, and I never, at least for that, I didn't want to give my dollars to something like that because I wanted to see real animals in their real natural habitat.
And it was a lot of dollars to go on those particular
excursions. It was a lot of dollars. Yeah.
And Stephanie and I, we try to, it's hard on a cruise ship where you're getting paid and you don't have the expenses that you have on land. When you see the amount in your bank account go up like that, it's like, oh, cool, we can afford anything. But that's not true because you do need to float yourself between contracts. That's why that works.
Yeah.
Right.
But when we were on the ship, we're like, all right, well, let's try to watch what we spend. And this opportunity came up to go swim in baited water with hammerhead sharks. And we're like, that sounds awesome, but it's really expensive and it's not the way we want to see the animals. And so we went on this other scuba adventure, and there's nowhere on there where they say there's going to be sharks because, I mean, it's the ocean. There could be sharks or there could not be sharks. And luckily we got to see these sharks. And it was amazing to see that.
It's kind of fun what your brain goes through. Because we have extensive training just to get basic open water certified. And in order to breathe, you do need to remain calm. And there's a sense of like true Zen, not to sound too like hippy dippy, but like really zened out when you're underwater with those breathing apparatuses. So I was first of all just excited that we finally got to scuba. We're in Grand Turk, and I was like, Stephanie, remember not to get into your emotions. Keep your eyes open and look at all the things. I was like, oh, the reef is so colorful. Oh, that's a cute fish. That's not a dolphin. That's a shark. That's a shark. Oh, that's a shark. And the shark was just chilled out swimming. I looked at David, I looked at our dive master and the other diver with us. Everyone was just super chill. So I was like, okay, I guess we're swimming with sharks.
The sharks weren't trying to eat any of the fish that were there. So I figured they probably weren't that hungry. And if they're not that hungry, they're probably not going to try to eat us.
Yeah.
On next Monday's bonus episode is the follow-up to my chat with David and Stephanie. We'll talk about their new contract and new ship home, on a ship that just about every passionate cruiser would love to hear about. And we'll do our usual features about keeping in touch with David and Stephanie, their future, and of course, our fun oddball cruise questions. David and Stephanie, thank you so much for agreeing to join us at the Joy of Cruising podcast. I'm excited to chat with you on Monday.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. We're excited to follow up.
Can't wait to share.
Best wishes to you all. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you
Paul.
so much.
So nice chatting with you.
The Joy of Cruising and Cruising Interrupted, each $16.99 plus shipping, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again for $18.99, can be ordered at the link on thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com. For each of the 3 books, use the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast and get $4 off. The Joy of Cruising books are also available at Amazon. Order the ebook at Amazon or your favorite online retailer. Stay in touch by joining the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or following the Joy of Cruising Podcast on Instagram. We're constantly adding new shows. Please leave a review and tell a friend about us. We hope you enjoyed this brief escape to the ocean. See you next week.